Surprised?
Yes.
That's a lot of money.
It started with my mother wearing flowers and father getting tired of the cleaning bills and bought her one. And she saw him off on embarkation leave and lost it. He never returned, and basically ever since we've been trying to find the original.
So this has been going on for about 40 years?
Yes.
Well, you've certainly brought along some extraordinary examples. Now, I suppose these are the creme de la creme of the collection.
Oh, yes.
They are, of course, Victorian Posy holders, so that the Victorian young lady could carry her flowers without soiling her chamois leather gloves. This, I think, is a most remarkable one. It's gold, the most beautiful filigree work, and it's, I would imagine, Chinese because the box is Chinese and it does appear to be the original box. And this one, I would think, well, really, I suppose the period of all of them is around the 1860s to the 1880s. But the workmanship on that is really quite exquisite. They all have this pin through to hold the bouquet firmly in place. This is another gold one, set with semi-precious stones. The handle is a bloodstone, an amethyst at the base, beautiful Victorian original case, and on the cover, the monogram of Queen Victoria, Regina et Imperatrice.
Yeah.
Royal crown, made by Garrard's Crown Jewellers. That's a really beautiful one.
Yes.
This is another interesting thing. I think that...
That's my favourite.
Is it really? That's... And it's got some little hallmarks on it here, which... It's Russian.
Yes.
56 standard, which I think roughly equates to 14 karat gold. I've never seen a Russian one before.
It's the only one I've ever seen.
And that's a lot of fun, isn't it? Again in its original case, which is always very nice to see. And then this quite remarkable thing. I'm certain that this must be Indian because this filigree work is very typical, and one can imagine some Indian bride smothered in this silver jewellery and carrying this bridal bouquet in imitation of the English style. And does this do something interesting?
Yes, you unscrew that.
And there you have a holder so you can put it down and shake hands with your guests at the wedding reception. It's very difficult to place a value on these because one doesn't see them very often. I would estimate that the gold ones are probably worth around £2,000 each, and the silver ones and the other ones that we have here probably between £500 and £1,000 each. I can't even guess at this one.
No.
But it's certainly a remarkable collection. And
Have to find somebody with small enough wrists.
yes, are you going to keep adding to it?
Hopefully, yes.
Now, tell me exactly why you brought this brooch to the Antiques Roadshow.
Well, I was told it was valuable, but I wasn't just sure, and I came to get the truth.
The truth.
The
Wow.
truth.
Well, the truth, as you know, has to be used with great economy in life, and I'm going to tell it to you just as it is. What were you told about the stones in this brooch?
Well, I was told it was a brown diamond.
Well, they were absolutely right. It's a brown diamond and white diamonds at either end. And in a way, it's rather remarkable for that. We don't see coloured diamonds very often in life. To be perfectly honest, we don't see rather large diamonds in life very often, do we? Tell me, whose was it?
It was an aunt of mine, and she was the same name as myself, so I eared it.
Well, that's wonderful, isn't it? I'm just lucky you did have the same name, actually. We might have bypassed you. And it's not something one would want to bypass in life because it's a very, very glamorous object indeed. I think it's worth saying about diamonds is that the white diamonds is what people really want. Blue white diamonds even better. Then, when they look inside, they want to see it absolutely flawless in the inner depths of the stone, and they'll use a diamond glass to determine that, using quite a high magnification to look into the inner recesses of the stone. And then, of course, they look for sheer size in diamonds, and this is a very respectable size. It's probably about 2 carats, something of that sort. And it's a curiosity. Have you ever seen a brown diamond before?
No, and my aunt wore it, and she said it wasn't a diamond.
Well,
She said, that's not a diamond.
Well, I'm absolutely confident that it is, and it's a very exciting thing for me to see, actually. It is, of course, the hardest material known to man. It scratches every other material in the planet, and there's a guide to hardness called Mohs Guide of Hardness, where every stone is used to scratch another stone. The diamond is at the top of that, resplendent at the top. Whatever you do to it, you cannot scratch it. And then second on Mohs scale is the sapphire. And the diamond is 7 times harder than the second layer down. But what we can say is that this is a remarkable thing to find today. And to tell you also that the cutting of the diamond is a 19th century, late 19th, perhaps early 20th century cut, and it's been put into a brooch rather later on, so it lived in another jewel before, as indeed its little partners at the end did. And it's a shawl pin for a very elegant lady in about 1900. So a remarkable object in every sense of the word. So we've got to get down to the nitty-gritty hardness of diamonds and get down to hard facts about finance. Go home, ring up the insurance company and say you want to cover it for £2,500.
Right. That's
Surprise?
Super. That's super.
Good. It's beautiful, isn't it? Look at it gleaming in the gleam of gold there.
This is actually a brooch, but it broke, so I use it as a necklace, but I will have it repaired one day.
It's worth it, I think. They're rather fascinating, aren't they? Were they your great-grandmothers?
They were my great-grandmothers, yes, and came down to me.
From Germany?
From Germany, yes.
But I think what's significant about this jewellery is that it's made of filigree and granulation.
Yeah.
Which is typical of all types of folk jewellery, from the Mediterranean up to the North Countries in Denmark and Scandinavia. The bracelet itself is a later addition because the colour of the gold is different and the phrasing of the metal.
Yeah, I wondered why.
And yet there are holes here for stitching, or at least some kind of textile. And it's my idea that this was once a hair bracelet, that there was tightly woven lock of hair supporting this bracelet.
Around it?
Around it. And this is what we very often find, that of course this is perishable and wears out, and yet a gold clasp remains. And so they string it onto perfectly sensibly a later gold bracelet. But hair, I'm pretty certain that it was, actually.
That's interesting.
It's an idea we're totally at odds with in the 20th century.
It
but
must have been strong hair.
Well, I think it was. I think it really was. Well, good Teutonic hair, you see, that's what we want. But anyway, they're marvellous survival, but oddly enough, having opened your little Pandora's box of jewellery here, it's not the jewellery that you have in the case that's interesting me, but it's the necklace you've got round your neck. Can you take that off?
Yes.
Let's have a really good look.
I thought it belongs to what?
You thought it became part of it?
Yes.
Yes, I think it's not actually
because
part.
it's similar. The clasp, if you look at it, it's similar to...
Well, it's decorated again with these tiny granules of gold, which gold is the most mysterious commodity because you can solder granules of the tiniest dust-like proportions to the surface of gold and give it this very interesting texture, and that's been going on since very ancient times. And these have erroneously been called muff chains. They're not muff chains. Because they were long, it was assumed that a muff would hang on it and put your hands through it. And it's quite nice to be able to sort of demolish that terminology once and for all, because they simply are not muff chains. They're simply there for decoration. It dates from about 1840. And it's this one that's really disproportionately valuable, because complicated gold jewellery, not easy to wear in the 20th century. And these two, fascinating as they are, they're worth low hundreds of pounds, say 350, 450 for the clasp alone, and with the bracelet, £500. But this one, put it down on your little inventory for £2,000. Surprised?
Yes.
Good.
Came across them about 12 years ago in Edinburgh in a curio shop.
That's nice. And was there, did they tell you anything about its history at all?
Well, there was a label on it saying it was almost certainly.
Almost certainly. We heard that one before. Yeah, tell me, almost certainly what?
Almost certainly made for Queen Victoria in mourning for Prince Albert, and I wanted to believe that.
Well, I think it's not terribly likely, actually, because although they're very beautiful jewels, they're not quite so sumptuous enough for a queen, I don't think. And It's called champ levé enamel, which means literally a raised field, and the enamel fills the reserves where the engraving tool has gone. And it's picked out rather nicely with these crowns, and I think probably the crowns have given rise to the idea that this is a piece of royal mourning jewellery. It's rather interesting that you bought them in Scotland because they're set with cairngorms. And of course, Victoria and Albert had very strong associations with Scotland, and they enjoyed finding these raw rock crystals and having them polished, and it created something of a craze at that time. I think there's a very strong possibility that they are mourning jewels for Prince Albert, but they may have been made to a royal order to be given to somebody of lesser stature, and my guess is that these are probably for a particular lady at court. Prince Albert died in 1861, and the Queen was utterly grief-stricken. She wrote to her uncle, King Leopold of the Belgians, saying, "My life as a happy one is ended, the world is gone from me." And then thence afterwards, until she died in 1901, she was preoccupied with her grief and her mourning. So these would have been an appropriate thing. The date of 1861 is absolutely perfect for the style and work of these jewels. So I think in a way it's sort of credible. We just slightly missed the bullseye.
Step or two down.
Not a real big lie, it was just a small lie.
Yeah, a small lie. Well, those sometimes so very necessary in life, aren't they, really? But I'm not sure they should be brought into commerce, really. You wanted to wear them when you bought them, did you? Did you find them wearable?
Yeah, I find it, but only when I wear black. I
Yes.
think it only looks good on black.
I think it's utterly splendid that you're wearing jewellery.
Yeah.
The English are very frightened of wearing jewellery today, and you show them how it's really done. So that's
but
great.
it's a bit difficult here in Yorkshire when you live in Yorkshire.
No, I don't
and
think
walk
so.
through the fields.
No, I think it's brilliant to see you walking through the fields. You'd rather like Mary Queen of Scots, I think, wearing that, wouldn't you? Brilliant idea. So come on, we're all itching to know what they cost in Edinburgh 6 years ago.
He didn't tell me.
Judging
really?
by what I'm hearing,
going to tell you now.
I'm hesitant to say.
It's going to have to tell you now.
I paid something in the region of £3,000 for it, which
Well,
probably makes you gasp.
No,
and
it
say,
doesn't. No, it doesn't make me gasp. It's quite a full price, without doubt. But the thing is that it's no good sort of chasing bargains all one's life. And if you really want good things, you've got to pay for them. And there's an old saying in the antiques trade that one really only regrets one's bargains. One never regrets one's extravagances. You certainly shouldn't regret this. This is lovely, lovely jewellery. Thanks for showing it. Brilliant.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much.
I bought it at a local auction rooms just a few weeks ago.
What, from round here?
Well, local to North Wales, yes.
How much did you pay?
£120.
Well, certainly when I saw the name Franklin, Duke Street, St James's, London,
Yes.
very good name
Yes.
indeed. It's a sautoir. This is what they're called.
Sautoir.
Sautoir, and it would have been worn as a long necklace round the
Right.
neck, and the ends of it would literally extend down right the way to the waist.
Yeah.
And they were very popular from about 1895, particularly through to around about 1905. They're real pearls.
Oh.
So you've got a woven line, a sort of plaited, spiraled line of real pearls.
Oh, lovely.
Look at the diamonds, because that's what they are in these caps. You've got these finials, these sort of terminal points here.
Yes.
They look like little caps, but each of the lines are set in silver with tiny, tiny diamonds, rose-cut diamonds.
Rose-cut ones. Right.
And then each of these sort of terminals suspends at the bottom a series of rubies. They're all set in gold,
Yes.
alternating with little cubes.
That's right,
And each
yes.
of the cubes is individually set with more tiny diamonds.
Diamonds. Right.
And then suspended at the end of the last ruby is yet another tassel terminal with more diamonds in the cap, all silver set, by the way.
Yes.
And then a series of real pearl fringe drops. But the staggering thing about all this is that you've managed to acquire a fairly important piece of jewellery for £120.
Yes.
Because I think that if one was selling this, it would probably make £3,000.
Oh, my goodness me. That's a lot of money.
Well, talk about the right piece in the right box. I mean, doesn't it look lovely against that blue velvet? It's beautiful.
It does. My mother remembers her great aunt wearing it, and she had a very ample bosom and used to often wear black velvet gowns.
It shimmered spectacularly.
Yes.
Well, the big feature about this, apart from the fact that it's a lovely flower spray brooch, is that the centre flower cluster is mounted on this coiled spring it literally scintillates
Yes.
when you wear it.
Yes.
So it sets off this fantastic shimmer.
Yes.
One of the features about all Victorian jewellery is how immensely practical they were. And if you take out the blocking,
I never realised that was there.
well, it's a nice little touch that the Victorians were excellent at doing. What it meant was that you could remove the centre at the back, and you could sometimes convert it to be worn, in this case, as a spray for the back of the hair. So it's just an extra little feature,
Yes.
and they were supremely practical people. You could do all sorts of different things. But as I say, it's a late Victorian piece. It's mounted up in silver and gold, lots of diamonds set all over it. Total carat weight, probably about 7 carats. Now, I think if it was offered in auction, because it's got all the fittings and the case, it would probably achieve in the region of, say, £2,500 to £3,000. Now, bear in mind that's auction, and I think if you expected to buy it in a retail shop with the markup on top of it, you'd probably be looking at perhaps around about £6,000 for it.
Originally it was my grandmother's, and when she died, the family gathered around a table and had to sort out her jewellery, and my mother, being the eldest, had the first choice. She chose this.
It's platinum set with pure white diamonds in what are called mille grain settings. They're called mille grain, literally 1,000 grains, because 1,000 grains apparently hold each of these absolutely pure water white diamonds into the framework of what is a wonderfully articulated jewel.
Yes.
I'm almost sure it's French. It's such fantastic craftsmanship, made in about 1900, and of dazzlingly refined craftsmanship. Today, it's exactly the sort of diamond jewellery that people want. It's not ostentatious, it's wearable,
Yes.
and it's beautifully made, and it's pure white. So it's a very valuable thing indeed. It's worth about £8,500 to £10,000 for insurance.
It's really crucial to work out precisely when this bracelet was put together. And I've just been talking with our jewellery expert, John Benjamin, and he confirms that the gold mounts with the fittings and the composition, which is a very classical shape, would have been made in the Georgian period. It dates from the end of the 18th century, or perhaps around about 1800. And that's really very important because the pieces of glass which it's formed of contain decorative techniques which weren't reinvented by the Venetians until the middle of the 19th century. Prior to that, they hadn't been made since Roman times. So what we're looking at is a collection of fragments of Roman glass mounted together at the end of the 18th century. So, do you know a part of its history at all?
Don't really. All I really know is the fact that it was left to me by my mother, and prior to that, I believe it was given to my mother by an old aunt of hers. But apart from that, I would love to know its history.
It was just come down in the family
Yes.
as a little piece of jewellery. I mean, when the pieces of glass were discovered, they would have come from archaeological excavations as fragments of wonderful pieces of Roman glass, bowls, jugs and vessels. When they were found, they certainly didn't look like this. When we turned the back over, it shows the unpolished surface. Here is how the glass would have looked. These little fragments are in their raw state. By being in the ground, glass decomposes and develops a silvery iridescence. As a result, the collectors polished them again, and by repolishing, as the Romans had done originally, the colours inside the glass come out, and these are the colours from, they all date from around about the 1st century AD. So we're going back to almost 2 millenniums, I suppose, ago. And to think how they did it. I mean, the techniques here really were wonderful methods of making glass. The patterns, they contain, well, there's this one here, that's millefiori, individual canes. You've all seen the glass paperweights, which contain little pieces of rods of glass, like coloured sticks of rock, assembled together. Here they've made little patterns in the glass and fitted them around. That would have probably been a whole bowl, maybe that pattern all over it. Next to it, even more remarkable, we've got latticino. This is individual twists, little candy cane twists of one colour glass set within clear. So the yellow glass twisted up and laid down side by side and remelted into the side of a bowl or a jug. And so many techniques which became forgotten. No one knew how they were doing it. The Romans were able to practice so many techniques that we always think of as Victorian ideas because no one knew until then how it was done. Here, right at the end, that last piece contains, there's a flower head and other patterns of little flowers and beads, all made of coloured glass. They would have rolled that little flower in one coloured glass petals and then melted it all in together to form the patterns. And these would have been marvellous, extremely valuable treasures in their day. The complete bowls were really quite wonderful. Very few survive in intact condition. A few have come from excavations complete. They were normally repolished and put on display in the museums, but collectors were glad to hold just fragments of them because even the little pieces are scarce and they show the technology that the Roman glassmakers invented, and then the techniques became lost for a long, long time. I mean, these pieces, which were assembled, they were shaped to fit into a nice piece of jewellery, and here a collector has had this made at a time when there was a great deal of interest in the Roman world. The excavations at Pompeii had been working. Maybe some of these fragments had come from excavations like that. Who knows, this might have been part of a suite of a matching necklace and another bracelet once. That's often how these came in the 18th century. To think the pieces are even older, and we've got a very valuable piece of jewellery. Because it has value for two reasons. The glass pieces are precious. Even fragments of these rare glass are valuable because complete bowls are worth hundreds of thousands of pounds. They just don't exist. Very rarely come on the market. Even fragments are worth hundreds of pounds each. Some of these pieces alone can be worth many hundreds of pounds. Adding those up together, we've got a fair bit, and mounted in such a wonderful way in a period piece of jewellery which is so smart. Somewhere perhaps 6,000 to 10,000 pounds.
Heavens.
It's just lovely.
It's beautiful. I definitely won't wear it now.